Are parents ready to send their children to school? Are schools ready to open for physical classes? What are the challenges that we can expect as parents, and what are the challenges that the schools are preparing for if they were to open for physical classes? Are online classes here to stay? These are some of the few questions that are lurking in a parent's mind today. And in the next 30 minutes, we will attempt to answer as many as we can. My name is Pooja Kedia from Schoolwiser, and I am joined today by Mrs. Mukta Mishra. Mrs. Mishra has been associated with education for the last 35 years. She has authored more than 30 books and is currently the director at American International School, Greater Noida. Welcome. I am also joined by Mrs. Nina Thamaya. Mrs. Thamaya comes with experience of over 2 decades, both in India and overseas. She is currently the principal at Swiss Cottage School, which is technically in Delhi, as you just mentioned during your introduction. And she is the National Achiever Award winner. Welcome to you as well. I am also joined by Dr. Karen Pakrasi, who is an ophthalmologist from All India Institute of Medical Sciences and is currently the director ophthalmology at Medanta Hospital with special interest in patient safety measures. Welcome. All right, without any further ado, I would like to, I think we've lost Dr. Karen, but I'll go on anyway. I'd like to parents would want to know that being, has there been any directive, any advisory, any formal communication that has come to schools from either the Director of Education or from the list of these 15 things that schools have satisfied before you qualify as now okay to open schools? Is there anything? And I'm happy to start with Mrs. Mishra.
Somebody is talking about the preparation at school, otherwise the other topics which are being covered in different webinars. So honestly speaking, the Ministry of HRD, they have laid the outline, but they are not specific to any particular, you can say, school or something. The reason behind is that we are having 3 types of schools in India. We are having the government school, we are having the government aided school and the private school. And 45% of the students. Is my voice clear?
Yes, I can hear you back again now. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Technology challenges is something that we live with every day now.
Every day, every day. So when we talk about the physical setups, again, they have to be designed differentially by the state governments. Different states, they'll be designing their own thing. As we have heard today itself that in Gurgaon, the order is, or you know, the school will reopen by end of July. Whereas there was another order that will be reopening post 15, whereas UP belt, they are considering that not before 31st of August. So there are different guidelines, and accordingly the preparation pattern is also different. We cannot compare the preparation done in the government school, government aided school and the private school. So all across the country, 24% children, they are going to private school. So we will, I think, converge to the preparation done in the private schools. I would like to just ask whether we are considering the private school or seeing the vividity of the country all across India.
So let's keep the discussion today focused on private schools, because that's our parent audience that's going to be consuming this data and that's looking at this video right now. Most of them do belong to, their children do go to private schools.
So I think most of the schools, they are basically preparing for the seating arrangement, equipping the school with more water facility, more sanitation facility, this sterilization thing. Things are on, and every day we are popped up with thousands of mails where there are so many things they are coming up. And when we are having the virtual meetings with the parents, they are also, they are coming up with so many ideas. We must have this. Do we have this? Do we have this? And when we talk about how prepared they are for sending the children, I must confess that children of the primary students, nursery to fifth, parents are not prepared to send their children to the school. I have my granddaughter who is in class 1. Honestly, the mother is not willing to send the school even if the school will reopen in September or October. So that's the fear when we talk about the private sector.
Great, thank you so much. And I think I really appreciate you being so candid and honest about, the scenario in your household, and you being from the education sector, having an influence and a control on, kind of what happens around. If that's the conversation at your household, I can understand the worry and, the kind of fear that parents are living under. But that's great. So what I hear you say, if I were to rephrase that for the benefit of our parent audience, no, there is not any directive that has come out formally as of now. However, when there is a firm date for schools to open, that is something that will follow. Mrs. Thimaiya, if I could now kind of pose the same question to you, have you heard the same thing as Mrs. Misra has spoken about, or are your views different on this?
Okay, first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for having me here on this August panel. It's such a pleasure. And education to me is a cornerstone of civilization, right? It is what helps us to, hone the cognitive, the affective skills of our students. And that is what makes them effective individuals when they grow up. So education to me is one of the, strongest and most important pillars of any society. In fact, unfortunately, in the case of the last few months, the scare of the coronavirus pandemic has threatened and compromised the very fabric of our society. So I think we should take a moment here to, appreciate the gravity of the situation. I think we are living through a page of history. Kids are going to read about this maybe, 30 years down the line. Let's appreciate that. And I think that being said, we have, especially the educational fraternity has dealt with it very, very effectively. In fact, I think my teachers, Swiss Scholars School, have been an indefatigable force, absolutely. The way they have worked tirelessly to, get onto that online and virtual teaching platform and things like that. And most of them, there are many who are not very savvy when it came to technology, but they taught themselves, or with guidance from other teachers, friends, they got on board. Okay, now to come back to your question regarding the guidelines, as ma'am has very, rightly said before me, first of all, there are different kinds of needs, but then right now we are focusing on the private schools because the parents who are watching it are from the NCR. So there is nothing specific, so to speak, but then yes, we have all been brainstorming. For instance, I can tell you what we have been thinking about. For instance, we have decided that there will be temperature check at the gate, at the entry and exit point for everybody, whether it is the staff, whether it's a student, whether it is a visitor, right? Masks will be mandatory, regardless of whoever it might be. Then, of course, social distancing will be maintained absolutely vigorously. There will be no compromise at all. There'll be extensive sanitization on the premises on a daily basis. All the surfaces will also be sanitized every day. Surfaces meaning desks, chairs, labs, libraries, and things like that. And of course, the activities which involve students assembling in any form, say the morning assembly, right? Or say sporting activities, team activities, or, even sitting together and watching a movie or a play. Those, of course, will have to be curtailed for the time being. Of course, the students are not going to be very happy about it, but that is what, one will have to do. Then, of course, there was some other planning also. These are the tentative measures that we were thinking about. Of course, that is, of course, open for discussion. What we were thinking is, suppose there are 30 children in a class, right? Rather than have all of them come in on the same day, we were thinking we'll have, roll number 1 to 15 come in on Monday, and then roll number 16 to 30 come in on Tuesday, right? So automatically the numbers are reduced, and the outcome is there is social distancing, right? In the bus, also in the classroom, on the school premises, in the corridors, wherever the children are coming. If the strength of the school is say 1300, immediately it is down to 650, right? So that is one way. Of course, the challenges are also there, as in the syllabus would take a long time to be covered, and then, you know, parents' concerns and things like that. But then the challenges also, I would think, are the challenges, yes, one is of course that the syllabus would take a long time to be completed. Then of course the concerns of parents, like my predecessor just said, especially when it comes to little children. I'm sure parents will have various inhibitions and doubts and questions as to whether we can ensure the safety of their child on the premises. We as educators and as, you know, people who are in the schools will try our best to reassure the parents that we are going to do everything humanly possible to keep the child as safe, if not more safe, than when they are at home, vis-a-vis, you know, proper sanitization of their hands, ensuring that they're wearing masks, and of course, even things like, during the break. I'm sure all of us who have been in schools are used to the chaos that ensues the minute the break starts, right? All the kids rush out and they are, going to their the classrooms of their friends, sharing their tiffins, water bottles, going into the canteen. All that would also have to be curtailed. At the most, 2 students maybe could be allowed to, venture out of the classroom at a time and then go back. Similarly, even for the washrooms, what we have decided at Swiss Cottage is to make sure that there's a lady guard on duty even in the washrooms, to ensure that there aren't more than 2 children in the classroom, in the washroom at any given time. Because please understand, children are children, they have been contained literally into their homes for a period of 3.5 to 4 months. They haven't met their friends, they are dying to, I'm sure, hug their friends and play games and, do all kinds of team sports, catch up on gossip, things like that. So I think the biggest challenge for us will be just to keep the children apart and, of course, counsel them about social distancing. Yes, that is, in fact, the first thing that I plan to do is the children come in, counsel them about social distancing, how important it is. And of course, without really scaring them, reminding them that we have to keep safe, because whether we like it or not, it is a huge threat to not only our country, but to the entire world as of now, especially since there is no vaccine also in sight.
Absolutely.
So yes, I hope
Great,
that answers your question.
Yes, it does. It does with a lot of depth. So I was hoping to get into a lot of areas that you've already covered, but I'll come back to this. And I know you've already touched upon things like infrastructure and how those changes will come into place. I'm particularly now keen to go to Dr. Pakrasi and find out, as a doctor, what would give you comfort in terms of medical infrastructure? In your opinion, what are the changes that a school should now be ready with?
See, the thing is that we can't really take children in school who are unwell. So you can't really have medical infrastructure. You can only have the infrastructure to prevent any infections from happening. Yeah. So the usual things, like basically what most importantly is in the prevention, the number one thing that helps in the prevention is the masks. So now which age group of children can you teach or can you give masks to? Yeah. So in the terms of prevention, the most important thing that you need to do is educate. So like she was saying before me, basically education, counseling is very important. So you have to send out, emails and messages on how to wear the mask, the proper way to wear the mask, that you shouldn't touch your face, you should sanitize before wearing, after taking off, your hands have to be sanitized. So now that, how to dispose of the mask. And I think most importantly, the school should have masks on with them. Secondly, they need to be able to segregate areas. Like, if somebody is, I don't think that they should keep children for too long, because we can't encourage people to sit around and eat together. That is the most dangerous thing, because you have to take off your mask to eat, right? So that is the time when infections are going to happen. So we should encourage shorter hours so that children don't have to stay. So in fact, most people, what they're doing is the countries that are opening up, they are opening for short hours and they're giving staggered timings, so that people don't have to spend too much. You're going back to school, basically the education can happen at home also, but the social interaction and the, just the little bit of interaction between the teachers and the students, and that is what is important, right? So for that, and then of course on campus, what you need to have is what every school should have in any case. They should have an infirmary, they should have a thermometer, they should check every child's with the non-contact tonometer before. They should screen them before they come in. They should send out very, very clear instructions that any child with a cold or cough or fever should not come. In fact, even teachers. So teachers should also be, encouraged to stay at home if they have any signs of any medical condition. It is better to be safe. And then as we were saying that, you segregate people into bubbles, into social bubbles. So like if there is a group of children who's coming in the morning, let them always come at that time. So that, and then they avoid the other children, so that if anybody gets infected, that only that small bubble gets infected. Then you're segregating people into small. So it's not only that you get larger facility for people to sit, like you can't have 30 people in a class, you have 10 groups of 10, so 3 groups. So even if somebody in that group gets infected, so what happens with that is, first of all, you have a larger distancing between children, because you're not cramping them all into one school, into one little classroom. Secondly, you are keeping track of these are the children and these are the teachers. So if anybody in that little bubble gets infected, for example, or starts testing positive, and you have to start testing people also, because by testing only you can tell whether anybody has an infection or not. So you have to test intermittently. And then if somebody becomes positive, you just put that little bubble out of the system. And then you reintroduce it, so it becomes far easier. And then you have to have like rules which say that you cannot drink water inside the classroom. You have to excuse yourself to go to the toilet, and there's to be somebody supervising them. Even when they're going out to drink water, they have to ask for permission. Somebody has to supervise them. And then of course, crocin, everybody has crocin in every in every school, and you have to be able to give them fluids, or at least an oximeter and pulse oximeter, where you check, because sometimes what happens is you don't know somebody's ill. And I believe children especially, they teach and they kind of go worse very quickly. So you have to have an oximeter just to check them. You have to have a little oxygen cylinder. So these kind of facilities definitely have to be made. But I think most of it has to go in the planning, because
Right.
your main idea is to let people get it. Sorry?
Sorry, I was just saying thank you so much. I think there's some very valid points that are made out there, which make a lot of sense to me as a mother myself. So I hear you say social bubble, because that will not just help to curtail the infection, but also make sure that, God forbid, if a case were to come out, you're able to track back and then segregate that particular bubble and not create panic in the entire school. Make sure the crowd points are taken care of. I also hear you say infrastructure wise, you've got to be equipped with oximeters, thermometers, possibly also partitions in the infirmary, to make sure that if at all there is a case of infection,
100, if you have, that's true. If you come up with a case which comes up,
Lovely.
So,
thank you so much. I'm just going to dwell a little more on that. And Mr. Mishra, if I could get your input. So from a parent's perspective, they're obviously extremely apprehensive about the fact that they're not ready to send their child to school. So break this down for us. Typically in a school, you've got about 30 to 40 children in a class, one teacher. I'm guessing the way we will head will be that it's not going to suddenly open for everybody. It's going to be a phased approach. Half the class still goes on, does online classes, the rest half comes, or like, Nina ji had mentioned that it's going to be kind of split, at that half the class will come in one day, half the class will come in the other day. And I'm guessing the rest half will do online classes. Is my understanding right? Okay, I see some nods. So break this down from a parent perspective. How will this work? So the same teacher who is in school that day will be taking online classes and will be taking offline classes?
Pooja, this is all, you can say, philosophical things, or this is all the planning. When we will come to the execution part of it, things will be very, very different. There are a lot of things which are being conveyed, even at this forum. Dr. Madam also and Nina Ma'am also, they have communicated the things. But the harsh reality is Number one, from where the funds will come. Number two, how the schools, they are going to maintain that. The child is coming to the school for the social interaction. The child is coming to the school to have those team games in the sports. The child is coming to learn theater, singing, music, art, craft, everything. If all these things will be curtailed from the school, then what we are going to teach? And online, offline, as ma'am has said, yes, present planning is that 50% students will be called in the school, and the same lesson through the videograph will be shared with rest of the 50%. Assessment, or you can say the homework or assignments, as minimum as possible, the contact should be there between teacher and the student. Now, when I'm saying this, means collection of notebooks, taking the attendance register, keep it here, keep it there, the arrangement period, the timetabling and everything. Things are not easy. We are planning. But at the moment, if 50% children, they are coming to the school, the same lesson can be transacted to rest of the 50% who are at home through Zoom or any of the method. Now, another important portion is that we cannot afford to have the complete full running physical school as we were having earlier. Now, this is the new normal. It's a new buzzword which has come. It has to be with that blended kind of learning. It has to be online, it has to be offline. We also need to see that when we are doing the offline things, how they can be, you know, merged with the online. If 50% children, they are attending the online, what is the impact of learning on those students? Is it the same as the children are learning sitting at home through the virtual class? So all these things we still have to come. Planning part, of course, this is the present plan. Now, education is, again, it's the basically the change in behavior. As Dr. Pakasi has rightly said, we need to train the children. Even at the moment when we are having the virtual meeting, classes, every class, be the science class, maths class, language class, dance, music, the things begin with a positive note in the sense that you will not be drinking water from the school. We will be providing them. We will be having the proper, but do arrange your own water bottle. You will not be sharing your tiffin at all. So all these things, we cannot afford to have them. The children will come, we will convey. We have to communicate now. We need to prepare them. So at the moment, this type of education is more important for us as a administrator, as a teacher, as a parent. The children should, this is the new education. This is the new chapter we need to integrate in our syllabus now.
Right. I think what you said was really right. This is the new normal. Now I'm going to just very, very quickly, come to you, Mr. Samaya. And we've got another 7-8 minutes to go, so we'll try and keep this fairly brief. Can you come up with one key challenge that you see when you're looking at physical classes again? I'm sure there's something that is weighing on your mind, worrying on you as a head of school, and I want to know what that is.
Okay, so definitely getting the students to maintain social distancing, that would be a challenge, as I said earlier also, and ma'am also mentioned that we can, we can plan till the cows come home, but implementation on ground is a whole different ballgame. I agree completely. But then we also need to understand that children, respond very well to instructions and boundaries. They are much more malleable than we adults are. We don't give them enough credit. And I believe there is great power in repetition. If you get up in the morning, the minute the child comes to school, you repeat that these are the instructions that you have to follow. You will sit at your desk. You're not going to move and sit with your friend, right? When you drink water, you will ask permission. You will go out to this X zone and drink your water and come back. When you're eating your tiffin, You will take off your mask, make sure you are in this spot, right? So these instructions and reiterations will have to be done. We will have to get the parents who are the stakeholders anyways on board also, so they can also reiterate the instructions, which are basically for the safety of the students. So when they are in school, the child is very clear about the instructions that he has to follow. It's really simple. For instance, when they come to school, you know, they debus, they, you know, move in a single line, or they come to school in proper uniform. So these are all because we've told them at some point. These are the instructions. So definitely social distancing will be the greatest challenge vis-a-vis students. And of course,
and when I hear you, talk in terms of, students kind of do what they're told, I truly hear an educator talking. So it's great that you've not just kind of stated the challenge, but you've also said that there is a way to mitigate that challenge and deal with it. So thank you so much for that. Dr. Pakrasi, really quickly and briefly, if you could talk about, a few tips for both teachers and students alike, in terms of making sure that they can cope up with this new way of learning, because online education is not going to go, it is here to stay. So what is it that, you would advise them?
So, honestly speaking, I feel that this generation lives in the unreal world. They don't live in the physical world. They adapt very quickly to online classes. And as it is, I don't think that for them to deal with the work, with the classes, with the classwork is going to be a problem. What is concerning, and I think what we should think more about, is the dehumanizing of the whole process. So why we are trying to bring them back to school is not because it's going to be difficult for them to have online classes or online interaction. They're doing it all the time. They're very happy with not meeting anybody. They can perfectly do that. But now we are bringing them in just to, for them to interact with each other. So that interaction is something which is very required. So I feel that, maybe the only thing that we need to remember is that when children are at home and when they are sitting on their computers, they should be relaxed, and we should try and maintain a regimen even there. As it is, we have parents who are coming in all the time saying that our children are too much on the computer, even when they were going to school. Right. People were doing computer classes and computer homework even when they were going to physical school. So to that, I don't think that problem has changed. The children are used to that. The only thing is now what needs to be done by the parents is to make sure that they set out a routine for them, because this is the time when you're on the computer, this is the time when you're off the computer. Okay, you're not going to school, but still let's do some games, still let's do some human interaction, still let's talk to each other. Dialogue is important. Their mental health is, I think, more at risk over here because they get segregated, they get lonely, they don't know how to interact with each other, they're not meeting their children. Even we feel segregated, we kind of, so I think the mental aspect of it is very important. And then, of course, from the very, very obvious things of being on the computer, and I think I gave you a whole list last time that, make sure that you have a station for them, give them proper lighting, give them a proper seat, a proper place where they can sit and all of that,
Great, thank you so much. So other than the hygiene, I think the most important thing that you said was put the human back in the equation, and that's what's required. Unfortunately, we've run short of time, but it was absolutely wonderful talking to all the ladies here. I'm just going to quickly, talk about the fact that parents are going to be worried, parents are going to be scared. We are living in unprecedented times, and it's not going to be easy for any parent to say, हाँ बेटा school jao. That is not going to happen. So it is going to take a lot of probably getting used to. And I think one of the things that we should look at is data that we already have. So I was reading the other day, and I would like to pull out those numbers that I saw. There are about 71 countries that have given a firm date on when schools will open. 12 of those have already opened. And there is enough best practice around that we can look at, which we can pick up and try and see if we can replicate that given our environment. Yes, India is different. We're a country with 130 crores, and it's not going to be easy for us to replicate what a Switzerland or a Belgium does. Having said that, there are things which should hopefully be easily replicable. I'm just going to talk about top ones that I liked. So Hong Kong has a half-day school to avoid crowding during lunch, something that we've already spoken about. Taiwan does desk partitions. Windows are kept open during indoor classes, and most of the classes are held outdoors to make sure that the virus is not in a contained area, if at all it is present there. UK has done a phased approach of return back to school with blended learning. And there is an element of physical and online classes that are now starting there. Croatia, schools have opened, but attendance is not mandatory, which means parents have a final say, dependent on the locality that they're living in, the household, the contact that they have, whether to send the child or not. Denmark, and this is one of my favorites, teachers do not touch the notebooks. Children do self-correction, and there is no sharing of stationery. Again, something that we briefly did touch upon today. Belgium has not more than 9 kids per class, and children have to maintain minimum 4 meters gap between each other. North Korea, children start their day by sanitizing and cleaning their desks and chair themselves, and end the day with the same hygiene so that they leave it clean for the next person to come in. On that, I'm going to quickly go around and take closing thoughts from everybody. If there's anything that you'd like to briefly add in, please feel free to do that. Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Pakratzi.
You know, this is not a medical thing, but for me, I feel that in India, we have a very special situation. And that is, like ma'am had said, that we have 3 kinds of schools. And the schools which are most affected are the schools which are government funded, you know, because those are the children who need to go to school because they don't have those facilities at home. You know, so, and for them, it is very important for us to see where they're coming to school, how they're coming to school, what their home situation is like. So that's a very, very complex issue that, you know, somehow the government, I think, I'm sure is looking at, and that will be a real issue because they need to go back to school because they don't have the facilities that everybody has at home, you know, like our children will never have a problem because we have the best of facilities. We can do anything at home, but they can't. They may not have a phone. They may not have a computer, you know, so.
Absolutely. And I think that is extremely true. And that's majority of the population or majority of the children. Anybody else for the last minute closing thoughts?
It's a time of sufferings, I think, for the whole world. And it's a time that we must find meaning in the suffering. And once we find the meaning in the suffering is no more a suffering. That's my message, not only for the school educators, medical profession, for anybody or everybody. Find a meaning. Some indication is there. Find the meaning and it will not be a suffering. Keep smiling, stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you so much. That was beautifully put. Mrs. Tamaya, really briefly, if there's anything that you'd like to add.
Yeah, certainly. Yes, though the odds seem unsurmountable at this point, especially for the marginalized among us. Definitely the odds seem unsurmountable and you know, unprecedented times. But I think with perseverance, discipline, and of course hope, I think we can achieve what we set out to, and we can overcome this horrible cloud, you know, shroud, in fact, that I would say, of the COVID-19, which has enveloped the whole world. And as Emily Dickinson once said, you know, hope is a thing with feathers which perches lightly on the soul. So we all have hope in our hearts, and I'm sure we will get through this just fine and be safe and healthy at the end of it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And I think hats off to both educators and doctors, and we are joined by the best on today's session.